And go ahead, Jose.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jose Rivera, the CEO of CSIA. Thank you for attending the month CSIA webinar. Today's webinar is about an enterprise excellence framework, which helps your company create focus and alignment throughout your organization that results in operational excellence. Be sure to ask questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. Questions will be answered during the webinar, so be sure to ask them. The webinar will be archived for later viewing, and the slides will be available also. The host and sponsor of our monthly business topic webinar is Software Toolbox, a CSIA partner member. Software Toolbox understands that you're not just buying software licenses, but are investing in a relationship where you depend on your suppliers to be there every step of the way. This month, Software Toolbox asks, is your team delivering all the value it could for your customers' reporting systems? Deliver more value with Dream Reports. Visit softwaretoolbox.com/dreamreport for more information. I would like to introduce today's webinar presenter, Jamie Jordan. Jamie is president of Stravicom Global, Inc., a management consulting firm in Charleston, South Carolina, and is a global award-winning industry leader with over 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur, consultant, and leader in technology, healthcare, green energy, manufacturing, and service environments. His experience in positions of CEO, president, sales, operations, and engineering management has led to the development of the Enterprise Excellence Framework, which is used to assist organizations in the pursuit of excellence. Jamie is a recipient of the CSIA Charlie Bergman Award, co-authored the CSIA Best Practices and Benchmarks Manual. So without any further delay, here's Jamie.
Jose, thanks so much, and I appreciate each of the CSIA members for attending and allowing me to share a little bit about enterprise excellence, realizing we don't have that much time, but I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation that you'll at least have an awareness of the various components of enterprise excellence and the importance of a framework that really helps you to align your organization with the resources to achieve higher levels of success. Really, before I get started into that, I'd really like to give a little bit of my journey. I know whenever I attend one of these or listen to a speaker, I always want to know what is your background and really what gives you the right to speak on this subject. So I started right out of college with working in manufacturing and worked in an aluminum rolling facility, and we did projects. I was part of a project team for about 3 years, and we did coordinated drive systems and furnace controls and just all types of automation within the plant. And then our team split off in the mid-'80s and started our own control systems integration firm. And so that was, at that time, the control systems integration business was really just getting started. Automation was the new thing, and people were starting to pursue PLCs and distributed control systems. And so it was an early part of my career that really got me into the control systems industry. And really thankful for that, because I think it really provided, as you well know, there's a lot of challenges associated with our industry, as far as changing technology. So I stayed in that business until 2006. And that's when I started doing consulting outside of the control systems integration industry, which was another eye-opener as well, because when you start going into various industries, you see a lot of similarities, but a lot of things that become very enlightening as to the way organizations are run and what it takes for success. So as an entrepreneur starting out in the early phase of a growing industry back in the 1980s or mid-'80s, the automation was recognized as the next thing, but the challenges were educating clients to the growing trends in automation, attracting right talent, pursuing right clients, rapidly changing industry of technology. But if you really fast forward to 2015 and where we are today, the industry may be larger and more mature, but the challenges are really the same that you face each and every day. Rapidly changing technology, globalization, attracting right talent, attracting right clients, and maintaining those, and really growing and thriving in a rapidly changing industry. So the goal for the Successful CSI is to focus the resources within the firm to create a competitive advantage. You know, the challenge is to take the vision of the owner or the chief executive, whoever has the vision for the company, and really translate that into the strategy or into a framework. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is really how to start putting these components together and into a framework. Let me get the next slide. Yeah, I take you'll see now a picture of the Mona Lisa because I wanted to really, when you think about vision, I know as a CEO of an organization, one of the biggest challenges I had was to really translate the vision that I had in my head and to really be able to have others see that same vision. It was very clear in my head, but it wasn't clear to everybody else's. And so when you see that, you know, I think of a painter or someone like Da Vinci who, you know, would have that in his head, but he's the one person who is painting that. But imagine if you had to have multiple people painting that same picture and really what that looks like. And that vision that the owner has or that the CEO has should be exciting. It should be compelling. It should be something that others are willing to invest their time in and be part of. And there's a biblical saying that says, without vision, the people perish, and I think that's very true. I think we've all been part of organizations where the company just seems to have lost its vision and it fizzles out over time. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we do have is really translating that vision into something that everyone can buy into. So if you really look at the if you really look at that challenge, let's take that same picture and problem getting these slides to move forward. If you really take that same picture and break it down into more of a paint by number, really translating that vision into a clear plan that utilizes and aligns the valuable resources within the company. And that allows each of the team members to know their part and really make the contributions to achieve the overall desired results. It's almost that a strategy is breaking that vision down into where all the team members can work together to accomplish the vision. And so as you can see that coming together with different people, I mean, that's the execution. So you have vision, you have strategy, and you have execution. When I go into organizations, I always tell people there's three components there, but you can live in the vision and strategy world and never get anything done. I think there are a lot of visions and a lot of strategies that just never make it to fruition because they don't have the people who are capable of executing the vision. So I always say that of the three, if I had to pick one, give me execution, because at least we'll get something done. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is really getting it done and really translating it into the day-to-day operations. And yeah, that's the challenge I think most of us face, you know, as we move forward. So you have to say, with a complex organization, and every organization, no matter how small or large, I work with companies who are hundreds of people. I work with organizations, 10 or 20 people. So, but each of them have levels of complexity. As you start opening up other locations, as you expand your products or services, each of the organizations become fairly complex. And so you really have to look at it and say, what is how do we put these components together? You may say, how do we connect the dots within the organization, and how do we paint that picture so everyone can contribute? And that truly is a challenge in most organizations, whether large or small, is because how does each person that they go in each and every day know how they are contributing to the overall vision of the organization? And that's really the next component we're going to discuss is why is an organizational framework necessary? Many of you in software, you know in software development that a framework is necessary. There are many industries where frameworks are essential. And software development is definitely one of those. Because you have to ask yourself, what good software development team would ever consider developing a complex piece of software that must communicate with multiple devices, perform many complex functions, and be easy to operate and maintain and upgrade without first developing a framework, which would allow multiple developers to write their section of the program and come together to operate as specified. Now, you in the software business, you know how crazy that would be. Without a framework or a standard, you'd end up with spaghetti code. And we all know how unstable spaghetti code can be and how difficult it is to maintain and modify. If you ever want any modifications done, you have to go back to the original person who had written it. But without a framework, that's what you end up with. But the reality is we start and we run companies each and every day without the use of a framework to connect the various components within the organization and really to align them to achieve the desired result of excellence. So we have to realize that all organizations have limited resources. In order to optimize output, all of these resources have to work together and to accomplish the shared vision. And many of us have worked in organizations where much of the company resources are spent either putting out fires, being distracted by what I call the latest shiny object, the project of the month or the widget of the month, and then a negative culture that drains energy and life from the people within the organization. So I think we've all experienced good and bad in those areas. So an organizational framework allows us to connect the dots, align the resources, and optimize investment within the company, which is really, I think, what we're all striving to do. As a CEO of a company and working with other CEOs, I never really got to the place where I heard somebody say, I don't want a company of excellence. Everybody is striving and wanting excellence. But to be able to put those pieces together is difficult because it goes beyond just the technical. Most people who start integration firms are technical in nature. They have a technical background. So they get pretty good at the operational side, but when it comes to business development or when it comes to the accounting or cost management or project management, all the other components, maybe that's not an area of expertise. And so it does become a little bit more difficult. But when we look at enterprise excellence, I want to really show you today the four major components that make up enterprise excellence. And I'll break these down, and without getting too analytical, the whole point today is really just to show you these various components and how they connect, and maybe give you some thoughts on how you can make your organization better just by being aware of the alignment that takes place within an organization. But the first is the culture cultivation. And the reason I use the term culture cultivation is because it is like a soil. And when you put seeds in a soil, it must be tilled, it must be prepared in order for those seeds to grow and thrive. And culture is the same way. And a lot of people think, well, culture is touchy-feely or, it's ambiguous, really what makes that culture. But when we get to that component of it, I'll share with you four major components that really define the picture of an organization. The next is operational excellence, and I think I think most innovation firms have been focused on this. They understand they need standards and practices and project execution methodologies, all of the other components that are really necessary to deliver systems and processes. And so that's probably one of the areas that most work on. But we'll go over that as well and break those down into the various components. The other is customer focus. And that is really pursuing and maintaining the right clients. I know business development has always been a difficult component for all the CSIs that I was ever involved in. That's probably the area they struggle in most, but probably one of the most critical. But there are some things that can be done to really pursue and maintain the right clients. The next is the scoreboard for success. And that is really an accurate scoreboard that really, and I use the term scoreboard, but people use KPIs or key performance indicators or metrics or whatever term you want to use. But I always really like the term scoreboard just simply because it tells you how you're doing in the game. Are you winning or losing the game? Which is so critical because it's not the beans will continue until morale improves type of situation with you're not making your numbers, you need to do this, but it's really a good indication of what we're doing right or wrong in the organization. And are we measuring and monitoring the right things? Because the old adage that says what you measure and what you monitor will improve is true. So if you start focusing in the right areas and you can really see that, then you can make intelligent investments and intelligent operational decisions as well. So what I'd like to do next is let's start with this next component, which I call a foundational component, the culture cultivation. Because we all know where when you walk into an organization, sometimes you find a good culture, sometimes you find a negative culture. There are various components that you may not know why it's that way, but you can certainly tell it's there. And so culture is really critical within an organization because it's not ambiguous. I'd argue that there are very tangible components associated with the culture that really work together to produce positive or negative culture, depending on the level of success in integrating the components. So really, when you look at culture cultivation, there are four major components associated with it. There we go. There are really four, and the first one is the organizational identity, and we talked a little bit about that with vision, but organizational identity is so critical because we know that when we go into an organization, I always say some organizations are in identity crises. They really don't know who they are. They're one thing one week and one thing the next. But then some are in identity theft mode, is that they're looking at another organization and trying to be that, and that's really not who they are. So it's really critical for not just your organization and your employees, but it's critical for your customers, for your vendors to really know who you are, what you stand for, what's your vision and values, and what you're all about. And the reason that becomes so critical is when you're wanting to attract the right talent, right people into your organization, a good fit, you really need to have that well defined. I think what happens with a lot of people who are hired, they're told one thing, and then when they come in, they see a totally different culture, and they go, wow, I made a big mistake here. And so when you make it clear from the very beginning that, and it really helps you to attract some of the right talent. A destination employer is one who people are wanting to come to work for you just because of the type of organization you are. You take good care of your people, you've got a good culture, and that's a lot of people are striving for. So the first component of that is organizational identity. The second is really the strategic plan. And many companies really don't have a strategic plan. They'll have a business plan, which is really nothing more than the task that they're to accomplish for that year, goals for the year. But a good strategic plan really aligns the resources of the organization to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And so with a strategic plan, it's kind of like the painting of the Mona Lisa there, as we break that down into paint by numbers. So as this group over here is painting this part and the other is painting this part, it's all coming together to become that masterpiece, and they are working together. So a strategic plan really helps you to do that and to really leverage the assets of the organization. I know in engineering, every time we bring in a new engineer, I wanted to know who he had relationships with or who she had relationship with. I wanted to know what industries they had worked in, where they were strong, because that may help support us in areas that maybe we're weak. And every person that you bring into the organization in engineering is truly your greatest asset. That's where your knowledge base comes. There's so much there. And so to be able to align the resources, the people, the processes within the organization to accomplish that becomes critical and should be part of your strategic plan. It may vary year by year as what you're doing because you hired some different people or you've gained some expertise in a certain area or you see emerging technology that you can take advantage of. A lot of those components need to be integrated into your strategic plan, and each of your team members need to know that this is where you're going and this is what you're going to accomplish. It's amazing how many organizations I go into, large and small, people are frustrated because they really don't know where the direction is going. They feel like either they're in a survival mode or they're just trying to get through the day. And I think most of your more talented people are wanting to say, I want to know where we're going. I want to know the vision, and I want to be part of it. I want to contribute to it and tell me what I need to do to help us to get there. It's a much more positive, thriving environment to be able to have that and greatly impacts your culture. And the third component there is really the leadership team. And I think this is underestimated in many different organizations, especially technical, because some of your strong technical people are not strong leaders, but yet they feel like they have to be in a position of leadership. And I've seen that as some of the mistakes that I've made before in the organization. It's promoting people based on their technical ability and not their leadership skill, and then having to clean up messes because they're poor leaders, or not investing in them to help make them better leaders. So with the leadership development will greatly impact your culture because it's necessary to ensure that you do have a strong leadership team that's able to, it really buys into identity of the organization and as well as the strategic plan and is able to push the change that's necessary through the organization, is able to strengthen the team to accomplish those results and also ensure the desired culture is reflected. So I've heard it said before, everything rises and falls on leadership. So a good, strong leadership team will help the organization move forward the way that leaders desire. And the fourth area is the culture cultivation. Is really the employee development piece. It's critical for getting the right members on the bus, as Jim Collins said, and sitting in the right seats, and going in the same direction, and providing the right tools and systems for success. But one thing that I've come to realize, especially in the integration industry, is I used to try to hire all superstars. I felt like that was the easiest thing to do because they were very talented. They required minimal supervision, and they worked hard, played hard, and they were easier to manage and lead. But as I grew the organization, especially as working in other organizations, I've really come to understand that, yes, the superstars are great and you need those, but it's a costly and unstable path that you have to have all superstars to deliver excellence within your company for each and every product. Because the reality is there's a limited number of superstars, and most of your average people are not going to perform at a superstar level unless you can truly put them in an environment. And this is one thing that I've really strived for over the last years, is to be able to take the average person and put them in the right environment and make them a superstar. Give them the tools, give them the processes to be able to take them and perform at the level. And that to me is a more realistic goal. I do a lot in healthcare too, and that's the paradigm shift in healthcare is, you got a great doctor to deliver great patient care, and it's not true. You should be able to take the average doc, put them in a great medical system, and achieve excellence in healthcare. But that paradigm shift for the medical industry, just like it is for the integration industry, because you need to be able to have those tools and processes that can help people to be successful within the organization. And that's very possible, especially through mentoring and extracting a lot of the best practices within the organization and so forth. So, the culture to me is the foundational. It's about the people, but it's the foundation, because your organizations are rise and fall on the people. You're hiring the right people, you're giving them the right tools, and you're training them. The next of the four components we're going to go over is operational excellence. And this side of the equation, I think a lot of the CSI are pretty good at, because really you're good in this area because you're working with your clients with lean methodologies and effective project management and process mapping, all these other tools that are just part of what you do day in and day out are applied to your business as well. Now, the reality is we don't apply it as well in our own business as we do for our clients, but at least we're familiar with these things. And I found when I moved out of the integration business into other industries that they were a lot further behind in lean methodologies, a lot of the things that were in the automation industry. But what I've also found is they can easily be applied to any industry and improve that. When you're looking at the next step of really operational excellence, and what operational excellence is really about the process. It's about being able to deliver excellence on each and every project. It shouldn't be based on who the project manager is. It shouldn't be based on who the customer is. You should be able to deliver excellence each and every project. And that are the products that you deliver. And that is, the challenge of how do you go about doing that? Because many times it's not just the technical. The technical may work fine, but if you've got a poor customer service, which goes beyond just the project manager or engineer, then that puts a bad taste in the customer's mouth, and they may not come back at that point. So customer service, a lot of people will say, well, why is customer service, in the operational side? Should that be up in sales and marketing? That's what our sales guys do. But really, are the phones being answered in a professional manner? Or do your customers get frustrated with automated attendance because they get an endless loop and can't get to talk to somebody when they need to? Or are your project status reports delivered in a professional and consistent manner? Is there a common language and consistency, professional communications, when you're communicating with your staff and clients? So a lot of the common language is a big piece of the customer service, and the way that you answer the phone and the way that you communicate. Each of these can promote or they can destroy the professional image that you're working hard to replace. So integrated into your operational excellence and into your day-to-day. And many times what I'll do there is do your mystery shopping. Have you ever called your organization to see what you experience? I mean, I'm working with a fairly large organization now. They're about 1,000 employees, and sometimes I'd have to call back 4 times because they don't do automated attendance, but they have a operator. And one day I had to call 4 different times to get through. And so have you ever just tried to call your organization and see how the phone's answered? Because it's really your other front door. And a lot of times if that's not done properly, or if your engineers or project managers communicate in a wrong manner, that can lose you to the next project just as much as your technical expertise can. So that's why the customer service to me needs to be integrated into the operational excellence. But then when you look at your delivery processes, and those are the tools that we were talking about, those are your programming standards, those are your project execution methodologies, those are your change management systems. You know, each of those components, those delivery processes are critical to deliver excellence on each project. Even if the best project engineer and project managers aren't available, we should still be delivering excellence on each project. There's one thing here with delivery systems, though, and I've seen it go from one extreme to the other. Companies really don't have good project management systems in place, and then all of a sudden it hurts them, and they get the project and it's a disaster, and then they say we need project management, and then they go just the opposite. They go too far over into bureaucratic systems. So at this point, I just want to say, too, you've got to have a balance there. Your systems need to be efficient, and they need to deliver quality, but they don't need to be bureaucratic. So what I always said was look at your systems, and do they in progress, or do they support progress? And sometimes you can get to that tipping point where your systems are just way too bureaucratic and you're not accomplishing what you originally intended. So those are some of the things with delivery processes that you can look at as well. Next is your business processes. You know, the key with business processes are they properly integrated with your delivery? You know, you're looking at bill costing, accounting, and data management. You know, are they critical? These funds are critical for operational excellence to be realized, but many view them as a necessary evil. And I don't know too many engineers and accountants have ever coexisted peacefully, but both are necessary. And that's just not in the engineering world. It's in many of the other industries as well. And what I found here was accountants can have a tendency to do things in a way that makes sense to them, but it really doesn't make sense to the people who are making money. And, you know, whether I'm in a hospital or manufacturing environment or a service environment, I always say we have to look at how we make our money, and then the finances need to align with the operations, not vice versa. And I think that's a mistake that we make here a lot of times, is we'll put everything in a P&L statement that really doesn't tell the people doing the work if they're winning or losing the game. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the scorecard. The last component here of operational excellence that I put in here too is really capacity analysis and innovation. The reason I put this in is because every industry, you have a certain capacity with the number of people that you have, the number of the industry that you're in. There is a capacity, and you need to know what that is, because you can push the limit, you can redline for a little while, but if it continues on, you may be behind the curve in hiring, you may be or increase or decrease in people. So you really need to know what your capacity is, and so you can make the appropriate adjustments when necessary. And that is an important component of operational excellence, because your quality will go down if you start redlining. And then you push the limits too long, you start losing your people, you start looking at the quality of your work decreases, and on the innovation side, you're always looking for ways to improve your delivery methods. Because if you can get more efficient in that, then you can push more work out with less effort. And that can improve our competitive advantage in the marketplace, which is what we're all striving for. The next section of this we'll go over is really the customer focus. And that's the third component of enterprise excellence. The customer focus, or in our terms here, business development. And this is usually a difficult area for the CSI because most business development of custom solutions is difficult. It's not like you're out selling a widget, so you're going to go out and sell so many of these. It's just about everything you do has a degree of customization to it. And custom solutions are one of your most difficult things to sell. And I think part of that I've seen in my experience has been because the sales and marketing functions really require blend technical and sales ability. I mean, you just can't take a sales guy who has no technical ability and send him out to do sales. Or if you do, he's got to bring the engineer in, when there's any kind of technical conversation. And the other component of that is hard to get the respect of the clients if they don't have the technical knowledge that they need. So finding that right blend is difficult, but the business development should be viewed as an investment. And like all investments, your return on investment should be reviewed to determine if the investments should be made or continue to be made. And one of the first ways that I try to do this is in the area of product and service analysis. And it's interesting when you go into a company that most of the organizations really don't know which product lines, industries they're making money. They're looking at their overall as a whole, but they're not breaking it down into the profit centers and cost centers and managing those appropriately. So when you look at, say, which areas are we growing, which markets are decreasing, that becomes a little bit more difficult, especially markets if industries are declining, you may have to make a drastic move in that. That's probably the biggest. When I was CEO of an integration firm, that's probably the biggest mistake that I made. And that was we had a location that was booming in the fiber optic industry. I mean, we had been going for years and growing that business, and it wasn't just one customer, it was multiple customers. But then all of a sudden, and this was before 9/11, this is actually August of 2001, the CEOs of major fiber optic industries came out and said, well, there's a glut of fiber in the ground and a glut of fiber in inventory, and they just stopped. I've never seen an industry just stop that rapidly. And we had quite a few orders. We had a large backlog with them, and so we worked through that backlog, but a smart thing at that point would have been just to shut down business because we were doing some specialized work in the industry that really wasn't easily transferable to other industries. But instead of doing that, we tried to make it work in this area, and we basically fumbled for that location. That was just one of our 3 locations, but we fumbled for about a year and a half and ended up losing considerable amounts of money to put the rest of the company in jeopardy. So, knowing where you're making your money and then responding quickly. Hindsight's always 20/20, and I try to apply that and help my clients today. But if I see something like that happening, say we've got 90 days to either recoup the business or shut down a location. And it would have been a smart thing to do there because then your efforts, instead of trying to keep that going, could have been focused on other locations or other industries to grow that. The other area is marketing systems as well. Let me bring up we have product and service analysis, and then we have the marketing systems and really sales systems. And I think with most integration firms, you don't really have extensive marketing, but what you do have is active networks. Those networks are with distributors, product manufacturers, industry associations, all of those where it's opening new doors for you, and you have to work those and to open doors and maintain relationships. sources for industry intelligence that may help you to be more effective. The other component with the sales systems is we used to always say the industry has sales cycles, and what I found out was most of those sales cycles were self-inflicted. That when we had plenty of work and a strong backlog, sales were not a priority. When we were hungry with low backlog, everybody put on their sales hat, networked with existing clients and industry relationships, and we'd get busy again, and then sales were no longer a priority. So the challenge is to have the consistent and effective business development efforts going on. The last component there is really the customer satisfaction systems. And I know we didn't do a very good job of this, but I've been in other industries to do a much better job, and it's a great feedback loop. You guys know how critical for size control is to have feedback, good feedback loops. And customer feedback is critical to ask them how you're doing on the job. And a lot of times they'll talk to a senior executive and tell them something that they may not tell a project manager or project engineer. So to get that feedback is critical, and really to integrate those suggestions into your operations. Definitely it's a great continuous improvement mechanism. The last one that we'll go into is the scoreboard for success. And the scoreboard for success really goes beyond the financial measures. I think most of the industries I work in, everything is financially driven, but really when you look at it, you have to integrate the score into the scoreboard, your culture, and that could be turnover, that could be productivity. There's a lot of factors that could be integrated with the culture. Operations is another. Customer information, how many new customers are we developing, new business. There's just a lot of good scorecard information that really helps you if you're winning or losing the game. Based on that information, you can make much more intelligent decisions about where you're going to invest your resources. It provides a great feedback and information necessary to make those intelligent decisions. So if you look at those components, look historically. That's the first place I look at is where we make our money. Where are increasing customers and industries, which are decreasing, and then really look at the P&L. And if you have multiple profit and loss centers, are we truly seeing where we're making money and where we're not making money? However, as the organization does become more complex, you really have to look at that and determine if you've got your cost segmented properly so you can manage those costs and determine where proper investment should be made. So I know there's a lot of information to go over, but when you can really look at the enterprise excellence, you can really see how, when you look at it as a whole, how all of these are integrated together. And when you start looking at it holistically, instead of 4 different silos, which I think is a challenge that most face, then you can really see how one can help the other and how that communication of an integrated operation, it's just like you face with integrated control systems, they work so much better than siloed control systems. The same is true within an enterprise. We just never really think of our organizations in the same way, but the same thing applies. So really some of the concluding thought is most organizations have the components of the enterprise excellence framework. A lot of people I talk to about this will say, man, their eyes will close over and they say, man, this is just too hard. I can't do all of that. Especially CEOs of large organizations say, we got a long way to go. So, well, you got most of those dots. It's just how they're connected. You may be missing a couple of them, but we can fill in those dots. But it's just developing that plan and being able to move forward. So it's kind of like the certification that you have with CSIA. A lot of people look at it and say it's just too difficult. But once you start taking bite out of it, you find that it's not as difficult, and it really does pay great dividends over time. And really the alignment of the components, that's why I really need to stress with the framework. you to create a positive culture, which is so important in this industry because you've got to attract and retain the desired talent. So it really has a positive impact on your culture when you can really realize that those four pieces, the identity, strategic plan, leadership, and employee development, are a strong foundation that you can build on. And then the operational excellence is a desirable but difficult journey. It's not easy. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're driving for excellence, you can't take the easy path. I mean, the wide road's the easy one, but everybody's on that one. The difficult road is usually the most desirable. So, and then the last is, enterprise excellence allows for the critical components of really customer focus, which is the area that most CSI struggle with, but it better integrates with the culture and operations when you realize that with your scorecard and the customer focus. So even though it may be difficult, and I really didn't want to overwhelm you today, but I did want to basically appeal to your engineering mind when it comes to applying organizational excellence, because to me it is very much putting the components together the same way that you put the components together for a well-run control system. So I think it's something from that you can understand, and something that you can pursue. But I do appreciate your time this morning. I thank you so much for allowing me to share, and I just hope that this really brings some awareness to the importance and of enterprise excellence and taking that journey.
So, thank you very much, Jamie. I'm looking at the question and answer board, and I don't see any question being posted, so we have a few minutes if anybody wants to post a question for Jamie. Okay, I think that everybody understood all what was presented. So, to all the attendees, I thank you very much for your participation. My hope is that you have several takeaways that help you get a few steps closer to operational excellence. Jamie, thank you very much for the contribution of your time and expertise. Your presentation was very insightful. We wish you the best for you and the Stravicom Global. Keep up the good work. Thanks again to our host and sponsor, John Weber and Monica Anderson of Software Toolbox. Be sure to complete the survey for today's webinar. It will arrive in your inbox within the hour and takes only 30 seconds to complete. Your feedback is necessary for our continuous improvement. So in closing, here are 3 important things to know. 1, all 2015 conference presentations are available in the Connected Community Library. Based on the conference survey, it was a great success. 2, the exchange is growing in size and significance. Contact Tony Verhoeven in the CSIA office to take full advantage of it, whether you're an integrator or a supplier partner. 3, the next Pulse statistics programs will launch in September, so keep an eye open for it. And finally, if you have a suggested topic for a webinar, include it in your survey comments. This is Jose Rivera, the CSIA CEO. Thanks again for attending, and goodbye.